Cool. Thanks everybody for joining up today. Like I previously said, we're going to be talking all about integrations today and why you should connect all of your security tools to PlexTrac. My name is Dallin and I'll be your moderator, but I am by no means the star of the show. So I will go ahead and introduce our panelist lineup for today. First off, you guys probably know him already. The guy in the purple hat. Shawn Scott, our VP of Success. Shawn, you want to introduce yourself real quick?
Hey, everybody. Shawn Scott, VP of Success. Been around with PlexTrac since we kicked off. And for those of you who are in the audience that are current clients, I know we've talked in the past. Looking forward to giving a tour of what we can do with integrations in PlexTrac.
Awesome. Next up, we've got Landon Reese, who's our VP of Product. And I believe this is your second webinar now. So Landon, you want to introduce yourself?
It is. Hey, Landon Reese, VP of Product here at PlexTrac. I'm glad to be on here and talking with you all. I've been here for almost a year now. It feels like just yesterday that I joined. And if you don't know much about product, what we like to do is listen to you all and what you need, and we help figure out what we're going to build next. And so I'm here to kind of give a big shout outs to all the folks who've built out integrations today and walk through some things.
Awesome. And last but not least, we've got Jordan Treasure. Jordan's been with us for a while, but this is his first webinar. So Jordan, no pressure. You want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, they finally put me out in public. Jordan Treasure, Manager of Professional Services here at PlexTrac. Looking at a lot of our attendees, we've met virtually before. I've been with the company for about 2 years, and originally just in a CSM role, because back then everybody was a CSM. But now that we've grown and specialized, I'm running the professional services team. So happy to be here. I do have a security background, as I think a lot of you know, working with the Department of Defense, doing threat hunting missions, risk assessments, vulnerability assessments. So try to bring a little bit of that to the picture. I'm by no means the best of the best or anything, but happy to be here. And yeah, be nice to me, guys. It's my first webinar. So
great. Before I kick it over to Landon, just kind of want to discuss the agenda. Obviously PlexTrac, the premier pen test reporting platform, and our job is to make integrating all of your tools into our platform as easy as possible. We're going to talk about all of our integrations and the different buckets they fit into. Shawn's going to lead a demo, kind of showing off those features and the benefits. And like Jordan said, going to kind of bring some of his expertise to the table as well, and detail some, maybe real world experiences and cases where PlexTrac could solve a lot of his problems. So without that, I'll shut up and let the experts get to it. Landon, you want to take over here?
Oh, thank you. It's funny that you said expert, then you handed to me. So I'm happy to be here chatting about these, but I expect Shawn and Jordan to be able to pipe in as much as possible too. Dallin mentioned the 4 different categories of our different integration types. I think of vulnerability scanners. You can go to that next one; it'll stay there. The vulnerability scanners is the bread and butter of what we do for our pen testers. These are the tools you use to get your job done before you maybe hop into PlexTrac to get that report written. And we know there's been a lot of pain that lies in trying to build that report, because all of them speak a little different about the vulnerabilities or the findings or the issues or the accomplishments or whatever they may call them within their space. And that's where we come into play. We help ingest this data. We help make it easier. With these tools, we automatically map the data you export from those tools into our report findings under the guise of a client for you to go normalize that and make it easier to either send the report or actually send the JIRA ticket to your peers to go get it fixed. From a product perspective, when we look at these, we try and make them as simple for our users as possible, as few clicks as possible to get it imported, put the right other pieces of our workflow right up front, like tagging, so that you can get what you need out to your report or get it managed or do analytics the way you need to, all through our workflow. And if you're interested in the tools we see most used across our platform, I'm sure you guys probably know, it's no surprise. You'll see Burp and Nessus, and that's from what we see. Now, we have a suite that you can look across that both covers application pen testing and network pen testing. Cool. Did I miss anything, experts?
I think you're doing good, and the key is that it's all part of the discovery phase, right? We fully anticipate that this isn't the end all and be all, right? This is where you start. This is where you identify where you're going to go next. Or if it's not, actual an engagement that involves manual pen testing, we've got a lot of our partners that just do vulnerability management as a service for their clients, especially in the MSSP space. We see a lot of that where they've got recurring revenue streams, which is always a plus, right? We all know that going out and buying your own copy of Nessus Pro only knocks you back $4,000, right? But it's the cost associated with having a trained technician, that knows how to use that. And so, we see more and more just a lot of our clients who are doing outsourced work, and that can be as simple as just doing that, vuln scanning and letting them know what they need to remediate, or taking it to the next level, either just confirmation of exploitability, or using it as the way that they map out the path they're going to take through the network or application.
Yep, yeah. Absolutely. And when you're looking at multiple phases of an engagement as well, so that data normalization. So yeah, you've bought your expensive tools, you've got your open source tools, you're bringing everything in. You're able to kind of park it all in one parking lot and take a look at it and start to begin, as you're doing discovery, and you've got everything in front of you, one picture, normalized, very familiar format, and you're not just looking at scan output after scan output. It's all right there in front of you. So it's great.
All right. So the next category of integrations that we have for ingestion into our platform are automated pen testing and bug bounty tools. We're seeing many of you guys out there adopting breach and attack simulation tools, pen testing as a service tools, or bug bounty tools. And at the end of the day, it's all about augmenting your pen testing capability, because we know that the vulnerabilities you find that came from something or someone actually exploiting are the best to go fix and the ones you should focus on first. And so we know that this is getting added into your guys' pen testing programs, and we want to make sure it's just as easy to use these tools as it is to use our vulnerability scanning tools. Right now, we have 2 integrations in this space. One's with Node 0 from our friends at Horizon 3, and the other one's HackerOne from a bug bounty perspective. As the product person, I can say that we're consistently and constantly looking at how we can invest more into this space specifically. So it's a little too early for me to share. It's at the tip of my tongue. I want to say a couple more, but I can't right now. But know that this list gets bigger in a little bit.
When we first started diving into our integrations in this space, and there is a lot of overlap between the automated pen testing space and the adversary emulation space, breach and attack simulation space. It gets real fuzzy on those lines. But one thing that I've consistently seen from a business perspective, and that's one of the nice things about my vantage point here at PlexTrac, is I get to talk and work with a lot of the leaders, both on the enterprise and the consultancy side, is a lot of these tools aren't just for enterprise anymore. And the reason why is I'm seeing increasingly more and more consultancies that are offering continuous testing as a service. Now, how they brand that, and what the specific package looks like, it depends. I've actually seen a couple partners that are offering menus. How often would you like us to perform testing? What tools would you like us to use? Because some of these tools are more expensive than others, right? But the key portion about that is it creates that stickiness, and more importantly, it creates the recurring revenue stream, right? And at the end of the day, I think that the whole world has realized that recurring revenue is better than transactional. And so, for those of you who are in the consultancy space, who have not yet thought about how you can use some of these automated tools as a complement to the existing services, these things are not going to replace, people like Nick Popovich, our hacker in residence, right? Somebody who is an extreme technical expert and is going to be able to take it beyond the automation. But it's all about continuous testing, and what you can do to help your client not just get a snapshot in time, but maintain a high level of security over time.
Yeah, no, I'm spot on, Shawn. Yeah, I don't think I could have said that any better. I won't try.
So if you jump to the next one, the last area of tools that I would say are on the ingestion side of PlexTrac are what we call our adversary emulation tools and test plans. These plug into our system in a different spot than the last two that we talked about. They are built into our runbooks module, and the runbooks module is the module where purple teaming or tabletop exercises happens. It's where you can build test plans and execute those test plans in a runbook or an engagement. And what we've learned is that sometimes if you're just getting into purple teaming or you're just learning how to do this, it can be kind of tough. And so what we did is we've actually tried to make it as simple as possible through these integrations to get you started. So we added in Red Canary's atomic red team procedures right out the box. So if you want to build a test plan with some level of procedures using MITRE's attack framework, you can. We also used MITRE Ingenuity, or the Center for Intelligent Defense's adversary emulation plans. It's a GitHub community project where they've spent a ton of time and research looking at some of how those advanced persistent threats go about their business and built test plans for you to be able to run. And we can import those too, so you can get them started and see how you do against what's happening out in the real world. And Scythe has a very similar community project that we can integrate and execute as well. So when you jump in and you're trying to learn how to collaborate against red and blue teams and you want some real live use cases, you can get started right out the gate with PlexTrac's runbooks.
And one thing I would add to what you indicated there, Landon, is we actually do two different things with Scythe. So Landon did a great job of discussing how to bring that data in really so that it really makes, honestly, it really easy for you to exercise your SOC, right? You know, you don't necessarily have to have a full-on offensive side of the house. Really an exercise director and the SOC, right? And using these imports, whether that's from the MITRE Ingenuity team or Scythe, you can come in, you can execute them with a very low level of expertise required, because they give you the exact command line parameters to use, right? And so that's it's really easy to execute the things that you want to determine what your detection capability is on. I actually lied. There's 3 ways we deal with Scythe data. You can also bring in, for Scythe specifically, the results of an engagement directly into our runbooks module, so that you can already have the data from an automated execution of a Scythe plan for your defensive team to go and determine, what was detected. Did we have alerts? Did we block? Do we only have forensic evidence? Do we need to tweak our rule sets? But the last way is that with our Scythe data, if you just want to bring those results from an engagement directly into a report so you can start hammering out remediation, that's easy. One button, and I'll even show you that a little bit later here in the demo.
Yeah, absolutely. One of my favorite things about these integrations and talking about, the defenders, the blue team who are actually responsible for taking it on the chin from these kinds of tests. When you look at names like Scythe, MITRE Ingenuity, Red Canary, you're bringing in probably a level of comfort for blue teamers. There's, we always preach the purple team aspect here at PlexTrac. And when someone's picking up all your rocks and looking under them and seeing if your hospital corners are done on your bed sheets and all that, it can be pretty stressful. But if you can use language or some kind of name like MITRE, for instance, most people who are defenders have probably interacted with MITRE before, right? So you're bringing in the reputation that MITRE already has, or Scythe or Red Canary, and presenting that to them as part of this collaborative effort. And I think that's huge, and it can really help some people get past those maybe those personal or cultural humps that they have around being assessed by an outside party. Turn it inside out, become that inside party, and look at it together. So love that we're integrating with these, because I think it's something that everybody can be comfortable with. So.
Absolutely. And so that wraps up all of the data ingestion side of what we integrate inside of our platform, but that isn't our whole integration story. We have a couple other things we need to be able to discuss. And one is about how one of our CRO calls it the goes out side. I like to think about it as our data export or our synchronization downstream perspective. And the one we want to highlight today is with other ticketing systems or DevOps systems like Jira and ServiceNow. And so once you've normalized all your data, you've built your beautiful reports, you have your findings, and then you want to be able to go and get them fixed, we have bidirectional syncing with both Jira and ServiceNow, so you can send it to the place where your partners live as developers or IT folks to go get the job done. And then inside our tools, we have all of our analytics hooked up so that you can see what's getting closed as they make progress.
You know, and Landon, these are incredible tools for our enterprise customers. What we tend to see, though, is on the consultancy side, they're like, okay, my clients don't necessarily want me to have a hook into their internal ticketing system. But the nice thing is that PlexTrac, by design out of the box, provides an in-platform way for consultancies to provide a similar level of remediation tracking for their clients. So, we have, all of our license, features include the ability for you to open up PlexTrac as a client portal and you to give a less privileged level of access so that, downstream recipients can come in, they can not just view the data, but we have the built-in status trackers. And we'll make sure we highlight that when we get to the demo. So even if these particular integrations don't scratch your itch, PlexTrac's got you covered on the remediation tracking as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
And one thing that I'll say to these integrations, a lot of times customers come to us and they're a part of a much larger organization. And their team is responsible for accomplishing a certain mission set or a certain list of tasks. And PlexTrac might be the best tool for them to do that, but they're concerned about their ability to integrate with the larger organization. And that's where these integrations are great. So if anybody's in the crowd that's checking out PlexTrac for the first time and you do have those concerns, just know being able to integrate with the large organizations, Jira, ServiceNow, whatever it is, it really helps smooth over some of those conversations with CISOs and those nasty contracting guys. So yeah, it's great if you're looking at this from a how do I get PlexTrac point of view. These for your larger organization is great.
Yeah. Fantastic. And jumping off of what Shawn said, where if maybe these things aren't exactly fitting the bill for you, I think it would be remiss for us not to talk about our open API for if you saw something, if you didn't see what you needed on here, that you can help solve your problem already. We have an open API that it's what we use to actually build our own integrations, and that is so we know it can work. And if you have a tool that you want to do, maybe it's an internal one, or if there's one that you maybe you didn't see on our list, you can use this to actually build out that integration. We do have existing customers that are doing this today, and we even have some existing partners that have done it today to build an integrated experience across their platform and our platform. I will do a shameless plug as a product person. I can't help myself. If there is a tool and you're an existing customer that you really want to see, go put it in the customer ideas portal. That's a way for our other customers to be able to vote on it. And if it gets enough votes and it gets enough momentum, we will implement it.
When we made the decision early on to keep our API open, we did it in the lens of the fact that the arsenal of tools in this space is humongous, ever expanding, and quite frankly, everyone's got their favorite pet rocks, right? What kind of surprised us a little bit over the last 3 years is those organizations that were developing in-house tools themselves that they wanted to market externally, and they looked at what they could do with PlexTrac, and they're like, we can just use PlexTrac as the presentation layer and save ourselves a lot of development time. We're already using PlexTrac to deliver our results from our other services, but now we've got this shiny new penny. Whether that's some sort of custom, cloud scanner for, some niche organization configuration scanners, things like that. So the sky's really the limit with what you can do with our API. And I am proud to announce that we have added a new API support function to our team here at PlexTrac. So if you are wanting to get your hands dirty with our API, know that you've got some help along the way now.
Yeah. Thank you, Shawn. And with that, I get to be done, which I'm really excited about, and hand off to my fellow friends to be able to go through our demo.
All right, so I'm up right now, and before I get started with clicking buttons, I always like to think about things in conceptual frameworks. And, Landon's done an incredible job of walking us through, all of the different ways and that we have to integrate. And quite frankly, we don't have enough time in this demo for me to demonstrate every single one of those. So I'm going to hit some highlights. But before I do that, I want to kind of leverage a little bit of the experience we've got in-house. So as Jordan Treasure mentioned, he has a life outside of PlexTrac as a threat hunter and on multifaceted operations. And he actually just returned to us less than a month ago from a 6-month sabbatical. I'd like to maybe turn over to him to just kind of share some thoughts and feedback from a 6-month mission where they were using a lot of different tools, but did not have any method to integrate that data.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's something that consultancies are probably dealing with, and enterprise for that matter. But this is not a unique use case for most people that are listening. But the idea of going out to a large enterprise network, maybe even multiple Class B subnets, and being expected to provide not only a threat hunting aspect with all your threat intelligence feeds and everything, but additionally picking up what we refer to at PlexTrac as multi-scope, sometimes multi-phase, objectives where we're doing the threat hunting, we're doing a standard vulnerability assessment, maybe even doing some red teaming and a GRC style risk assessment. And only being able to use the tools that we're allowed to use on these networks is something that I see pretty commonly because of the customers that I work with. And when you're limited to the tools that you have, which we all are to some degree, and you need to take all that information from different teams, different individuals who have different reporting styles or different opinions on what information should be shared. And then all the data aggregation. So automation is great, but I think in some ways we're automating ourselves to death. We need a way to automate all the automation and the results from all of it. So what I personally dealt with on my team as we went through this whole process for the last 6 months is I was not able to use PlexTrac, unfortunately. But I turned myself into PlexTrac, and it was a lot of work. So I spent 6 months being in constant contact with different teams, having at least a base understanding of what tools they were using, what expected outputs would be, and then trying to combine all of that into a list of deliverables to our customer at the end of the day, right? And I had to do a lot of manual work. I had to ask my teams to do a lot of manual work. And there was a lot of back and forth there because, as we all know, people don't like to do report writing. People, want to do their analysis. They want to use their cool, fancy cyber tools and then go on to the next thing. So pulling all that information into one place over a 6-month process was a nightmare. And I can tell you that if I would have had PlexTrac, we probably could have done it in half the time, I'm sure. So but when we talk about integrations and all those different tools, and I love the term data normalization. I know it's a little bit of a buzzword, but the idea that I'm using tools that are have completely different outputs, completely different data structures, and whether it's through a native integration like one of our import parsers or the API, I'm putting it all together, and PlexTrac's making it all human readable and available to me, my team, and ultimately the customer. So I kind of went on there for a little bit, but that's kind of the pain that I've had, and I have drank the Kool-Aid from the chalice of PlexTrac, and I was missing it the last 6 months. I'm telling you,
Yeah, I kind of put Jordan on the spot this morning. It's like, Jordan, I know you can't really talk about anything about what you've done for the last 6 months, but can you talk about it?
Yeah.
All right. Well, with no further ado, let's kind of get into talking a little bit about the various integrations that we've talked about. And I'm actually going to start out with the simplest one we have. But it's a pro tip, and it's one that I always like to highlight during our training. And it's a simple integration of an Nmap discovery scan, importation, right? And so why would I do that? Well, I do that because in PlexTrac, I'm gonna get a new client going here, and I'm just gonna call this webinar because I'm feeling real creative today. But in PlexTrac, for right now, I've got no reports, I've got no data in this new client. We treat the affected assets for any finding, vulnerability, control, things like that, as an independent data object, right? And so with this new, with this brand spanking new client, none of that data exists yet. But let's say that I'm a manual pen tester and I'm about to start. I'm not even thinking about using, things like, Nessus or Burp. I'm just going to go at it and have at it based upon, what I see in the environment for more manual type recon. I really can make my life a whole lot easier by just bringing in a simple Nmap discovery scan. So if I grab the XML output, and let me go ahead and move this off my screen because I apparently was looking at the Fin6 YAML that I'm going to show you a little bit later. But I can simply come in, I can grab a Nmap discovery scan in the XML format. And when I do that, when I bring that into my environment, it's going to parse out all of the assets that are associated with that. So now I've got those already pre-populated for use in this client. So where that comes in really, really handy is if I actually start creating a new report, and I'll just call this, my manual pen test of whatever scope you so desire, probably a network since I brought in an Nmap scan. But now, let's say that I'm coming in, I've identified vulnerabilities in the environment. I'm leveraging the write-ups database that is also native to PlexTrac, and I've seen this vulnerability before. So I'm just going to bring it in from the write-ups database. By the way, those of you who haven't been in PlexTrac for a while, you might notice that we've got some new UI elements. We've got repositories as a means of organization, and a pretty slick new way of bringing this into your report. So add those things from my write-ups database. But now I want to start enriching this data, right? This this SQL injection. Unfortunately, I grabbed a AppSec finding, and I'm going to go ahead and associate a network asset with it. But you guys are all with me, and you get the idea, right? But now, if I want to identify affected assets from that, I don't have to do a lot of work. I can just come here and add from existing assets, and I've got now all of those assets pre-populated as those data structures that are independent of the report that exist at the overall environment level for the client. So simple integration, but really powerful if you are doing the manual pen testing as a way of just saving some of your time, okay? But let's get on to talk about some of those other tools that, that we had Landon introduce for you. So the first thing I want to just demonstrate is kind of that first class of tools that we discussed, which is using the static exports of your various tools. We call these our static parsers, and so I'm just going to create a new report here real quick, show you how fast you can get going. And I'm actually going to do something that's a little bit off the beaten path. A lot of folks have known for a long time that we support the importation of your standard Nessus network type findings. But obviously, Tenable is doing a great job of adapting their products for the cloud, right? And so one of the things that they have done is they've now got an ability for you to do a scan of your Azure configurations. So I'm going to just demonstrate this, how this static import process works. It's honestly pretty cut and dried. I'm going to identify Nessus as the type of parser that I want to use here. And I'm going to throw the file at it. So I've got my Azure Nessus scan here. And I can submit this. Now, before I do that, I want to share another pro tip with you. Very, very common that a single report is going to have multiple types of findings, right? We discussed whether that's because you're using a scanning tool to augment a manual pen test, or maybe it's a multi-scope engagement, right? We're doing an internal, we're doing an external, we're doing a web app, right? And we use different tools for different scopes in this engagement. I'm always a big fan of going in and adding a quick tag on bulk import. I can call this Nessus Azure right? So I can very easily tag all the findings that are going to be created. I can do that on the finding. I can also do that on the assets that are created. One of the really cool things about all of these tools, whether it's a static tool or an API-based integration, is as we analyze that data coming in, I just showed you how we have a database for every client of all the assets that are known for that client. If we detect assets that are associated with these findings that we're bringing in that are not already in that database, we're going to create them on the fly for you. So you're going to have the benefit of that auto population and generation of those assets. And so if there are asset tags, let's say that this was, in Azure DevOps 1, whatever the environment was, I can also tag the assets that are going to be created upon importation. Submission of the file is pretty quick. It's going to do that parsing. It's going to let you know when it's done, and then we're off to the races. And so now you've got all the findings that came in, and we get to that data normalization that Jordan was talking about. So we're going to pop through. I'm not going to make you sit through watching me import static parsers 10 times, but we will highlight some of the differences in the data that comes in from these things. But one thing you'll notice is that it's fairly uniform in the structure. Now, different tools have different data associated with them. For example, the Azure Nessus component has a compliance result, and we parse that for you. If you were to look at a standard, a standard Nessus scan, it doesn't have necessarily this field. So depending upon the tool, you may get additional pieces of data that don't exist with other tools. But in general, what you're going to see is obviously you're going to get a title, you're going to get an indication of the description. This can be very simple. It can be very robust. Once again, it's a function of your tool. And then additional, fields that may be germane to that particular tool or subtool. Once again, we've created the affected assets. This was just simply Microsoft Azure, didn't have an IP or a path or something. And then for some of these, you're actually going to get the raw scan data. And we compartmentalize that. A lot of people don't have a lot of use for that sort of thing. Other people do. But what you'll find is on all of our importations, you've always got this nice little green button where we're storing that data as well. And then any recommendations and references. And then you can see that we, of course, tagged this with Azure. What's really nice about this is if I were to bring in another bit of data, either from my write-ups database or another scan tool, but I just want to isolate on those particular findings that are from that Azure import. I can do that by just coming up here, isolating on my Azure tag. It's not going to change because that's the only findings I've got in this report, but you kind of get the idea, right? So that's the basic flow for our static imports. And I'll highlight some of the other ones that we've got available. But one other thing, and it's going to be a little outside the scope, but it is adjacent, it goes hand in hand with our integrations, is if you are the kind of shop that you like to roll things up, right? Maybe you're doing a standard Nessus scan and a network scan, and you don't want the 50 SSL issues that you're going to get. And you want to consolidate those into a single finding. We give you that capability as well through our parser actions tool. If you just Google YouTube PlexTrac parser actions, you get a beautiful video of me talking from 2019 when I had 10 pounds less and more hair about what we can do with that as well. But I'm just going to hop up now and highlight some of the other different things that we can integrate with. And we're not going to necessarily go through all of these, but maybe just give you a flavor for what they look like as you've gone through that. Horizon 3, that is one of our newer integrations. It's one of those automated testing solutions. And get rid of my filter here. But I just walked through the exact same process. I won't go through the importation, but as you can see, we've got this whole list of parsers that we have available, and Horizon 3 is one of those that's available. You get a little bit of a different type of data. It tends to be what we've seen so far with the breach and attack simulation space is that they tend to be a little less verbose. It's really more designed for the consumer of this not to be a corporate executive, but the actual people who are doing remediation. So if I were to just pop into here, hey, it's pretty Spartan, but this is, what you'd get, same sort of thing you'd get if you were at the Horizon 3 console. Here's some of those additional, fields that once again are unique to this particular tool, the context score, whether this was a confirmed or potential ability to exploit this, and this will mean things to you. Once again, if you are a Horizon 3 user, that one doesn't actually have any evidence associated with it. So that's just an example of what you get with Horizon 3. For Qualys, we know that if you're a network shop, if you're not using Nessus, you're probably using Qualys just based upon our use data, right? And so once again, you're going to get things that look just a little bit differently based upon the data that's involved. Now, one thing that's a little bit different, I'll give you a preview of what the Qualys stuff looks like. Once again, the whole point is it looks real similar. That's that data normalization piece that Jordan's been hammering on. We got our description. Once again, we've got a little bit of additional data that's unique to this tool. We've got the PCI compliance status that comes out of Qualys because that's a flag that they have available for you. These all exist as custom fields. Now, one thing I haven't identified is that just because you have brought these in, you're not necessarily done with them. You can edit any of the data that comes in from these, just like you can any other finding in PlexTrac. Now, one thing that you might have noticed is that I've got these little orange, shading on certain one of these findings. One of the best practices that we will see with organizations that are bringing in their scan data into PlexTrac is that they will configure their PlexTrac environment to bring these in as what we call draft findings. And that gives them this little visual indication that these haven't been reviewed yet. So this gives you the opportunity to go in, preview it. If everything looks great, then you could simply say, great, I want to set that to a published status. And now I know that I've got a visual indicator that I reviewed that and it's ready to go to the final report. If I saw something that I wanted to edit it, no problem. I can come into the finding. I can edit whatever the default language is from the tool. I can enrich it if I want to add screenshots, any other evidence. I can do that all day long. And then once I'm done, I can mark that as published as well. And that will be a published finding for my report. And so really nice how the workflow goes, Landon, you kind of came into PlexTrac kind of as we started shifting our mindset a little bit about, it's not just about the ingestion, but about just making it easy to walk this stuff through your workflow.
Yeah, absolutely. The way I like to think about that is how do we make this as buttery or as smooth as possible? I don't know if you guys remember or followed Androids when they were doing their initial design thoughts, but they said they were trying to make it buttery. And I thought that was an interesting way to put it. The idea is that at every point we want to make this as simple for you guys, because the more we do that, the more time we save, the more you can do your pen testing, and the more you can worry about what you fix. And so we really try and make this, and we will continue to invest in making this as fast and as painless as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. And one thing that I always say to all our customers is that everybody uses PlexTrac differently, right? So for instance, we want to improve the report writing process. We want to get you through faster. But if you do hit one of those critical events where you really need to pump the brakes and do a deep dive analysis, we're not automating it or pushing it through so fast that you can't do your own quality control. You can bring it back and make sure that you're hitting all the high points, doing that deep dive analysis. You're not just pushing it out the door in the event that you need to, right? So sometimes scans are very boring and companies have it together and they're very straightforward. And sometimes you find something massive and critical. You get to do it both ways. You don't have to do it one or the other.
Awesome. Hey, and I'm not trying to hide from anybody. My webcam just cranked out on me. So if I sound a little bit different, I'm now on a different microphone as well. Just wanted to take an opportunity to just highlight that we also contextualize things a little bit differently based upon the tool. So if you were to take a look at an example like this is from Burp, right? But in Burp, we actually do something a little bit different. And we do this with a couple of our AppSec parsers, which we've gotten the feedback from our clients that the request and response data on these things is so important that they want to expose it right away. Now, this is actually a little bit different from how when we first brought Burp support in, we just would hide it like, as this additional scan evidence. But we got that feedback from our clients that no, I always want this to be present. And the reason that the ask was made to us is because We have a lot of people that are using PlexTrac as a means of electronic delivery, and they want to make it as buttery as, it's maybe my new favorite word to use with Landon, buttery. They want to make it as buttery of an experience possible for the downstream users and not have to have them think about, this is where my request and response data lives. So, that's the sort of feedback that Landon's team is always taking to continue to make improvements in this. So I've been really focusing on our static parsers and what we can do there, using files that have been exported from a tool and bringing them in. And that's really where we have the widest, the largest stable. But we've really identified that there is a need for integrations and getting your data into PlexTrac, not just via static exports, but in direct API to API communication. And JT.
Oh, I think we just lost Shawn again. Shawn, do we got you? Okay.
So.
I think I know where he was going with this. So when it comes to API integrations, we have an open API. It's very easy to use. We have documentation out there. We're constantly adding to and improving our documentation, but it's not uncommon for people to have their own tools that they've built out, that they either have custom built a tool or they've acquired some tool that they need to get information in PlexTrac in real time or in more efficient time. So we have our static parsers that Shawn was just demoing there, but we can also bring it back to that API level integration where you're pushing everything in via the API. It's all automated. Hey, Shawn's back. All right, fantastic. And our team out to do that API support. We're still fleshing out what that looks like a little bit. And one of the things that's always been great about PlexTrac is everything that you're seeing inside of PlexTrac, or almost everything, comes from some idea that a customer had. And we've developed, Landon plugged it earlier, we've developed this great new process to get feedback from customers. And as we look at API integrations and API support, I think we'll just continue that tradition. So.
Yeah, and Shawn, can we hear you? Or
yeah, you got me all right?
I can. I was all ready to talk to HackerOne while you pointed towards it, ventriloquist style, but I'll let you do it now.
Well, actually, JT, I appreciate you tap dancing for me, but that's not the direction I was going, brother.
I tried, man. I tried.
But let me tell you where I was going is that, what we know to be true is that our consultancies really tend to rely upon static exports, right? Those XMLs, those JSONs that come from tools, because they don't have a persistent presence on their client's network. It's still highly transactional. And I did a little discussion early in the webinar about how I'm seeing more of persistent type services, but it's not the norm yet, right? And so generally it's go in, do the scans, get the data, get the file, get out, right? And then make that part of our reporting. That's different from how we see people using tools like this in enterprise. Because in enterprise, you've got, you have the same subnets, the same applications, and you want that continuous coverage, right? You want to, the reason why you buy things like Tenable.sc, Tenable.io, Sneak, things like that is so that you can have, this testing continuing, and you want to be able to pull that stuff in without having to go through the drudgery of, exporting to an XML. What do I actually export, right? Making those decisions, bringing it into PlexTrac. So where we are putting a lot of our chips right now and our new integrations team is on these API level integrations. So there are a few that I'm going to identify today. If we get time, I'll go back and hit Tenable SC as well. But I want to start off by talking about one of our newer integrations, which is HackerOne. Now, if you're not familiar with HackerOne, it kind of straddles I think a little bit of a space between a traditional bug bounty and more of a persistent pen test as a service organization. I think they've got various different packages that you can identify. But at the end of the day, you're going to get a stream of application vulnerabilities that are delivered to you over time. right? And you're going to want to be able to check, hey, is there anything new for me? And so what we've done with our HackerOne integration is make this process easy. So if you have been into a report in PlexTrac in the last month or so, you may have noticed that we've got a new option in under Add Findings, and that is from integrations. And if I choose this, I get a drop down, and you'll see that I have 2 integrations set up and configured in my environment. So I'm going to choose HackerOne. And when I do that, I get this new UI. This is my picker, and this is a direct interface to the data that exists in HackerOne's service, right? And so what I have right now, it's basically all of the data that's available to me in the environment that I've configured. But we do give you all sorts of filters over here, because over time, you're going to want to drill down on things. Probably the most important one for most people is going to be this date filter, right? You know, when did we actually get, you know, maybe we want to pull this data once a month, maybe once every other week, whatever that is, you know, we can then further refine this down so that I can say, okay, I've already pulled everything from March and beyond. So we're just going to start out from April 1st, you know, to today, and notice that now everything is limited up here as well. So, you know, we can do it by severity, we can get rid of our date pickers, things like that. But at the end of the day, and I've got quite a few probably on different assets here, I can choose what I'm looking for, and I can add these findings. I'll just grab one of these and bring it into my report. Once I've done that, it is just like any other finding. Nothing is different from anything we've shown you to this point. Data is normalized. The data that is available is the data that's provided by HackerOne. And I can edit this just like I can any one of our other integrations, right? I can do the exact same process for my Snyk integration. And once again, Snyk is also not a sponsor, much like if you were on for the pre-show banter curiosity stream, we were talking them up. But Snyk is a tool that we use at PlexTrac, as well as part of our internal testing, which is probably why it was high on the priority list for Landon's team to get it integrated, because we're a eat your own dog food type shop. But the process is the same. You know, you've got the filters that are available to you. As we continue to invest in additional API level integrations, you'll continue to see a very similar look and feel. You know, it's not gonna, we're not gonna, you know, completely redesign this because we want it to be easy to use. You might have different filters over here based upon, you know, what fields are available and discriminators are available, but the process is the same, you know, and I can add these additional findings to my report. And now I am off to the races, and I'm continuing to once again build a report from all the various different sources of data that I have available for you. And, you know, if you're curious, you know, what does this look like today? It's, you know, it's fairly Spartan. It's what we have available for us. But one thing that's pretty cool about the Snyk integration, and I tested this about 5 minutes before we went live on the webinar, and I realized that I don't have the creds into our environment. But we actually do link directly to your Snyk environment, so that if you do have the creds for your environment, you can log in and you can actually go to the Snyk dashboard directly if there's any bits of data that you're interested in that we don't have currently available here. And so what's really cool about this is Landon's team's done a really great job. And, you know, maybe Landon, I'll point and click, but I'll let you talk conceptually about how, you know, not just in this area, but throughout the platform, we're normalizing how we set up things like our external integrations.
Sure. So maybe I'll start from here. Just like we were trying to make it easy for the pen tester who needs to integrate this capability, or maybe just needs to pull from something that is consistently available to them, we think the same about the administrator. And we want to keep the configuration of integrations as simple and as easy as possible. I've done a few configurations of integrations in the past, and I definitely didn't want to pass along some of the things that I've seen. And so we worked hard on trying to improve how and create as few steps as possible to be able to create an integration. And we want to follow this pattern as we go forward, where we help with authentication. We go through a simple mapping. We do give a recommendation on mapping. We work with our partners to our tech partners like HackerOne and Snyk to figure out where we think fits best, but that might not fit your workflows. That's fine. As we go forward, we'll allow for that mapping to be adjusted. And then you can set that up and you're good to go. And then we also give you a sync log so you can go and troubleshoot if something happens, which we doubt. We've been testing hard on this. So just like what we do within our report, where we're trying to make this as simple and consistent as possible when you're pulling in findings and they're in the same lexicon or the data is normalized like before, we're doing the same for the admin.
Dare I say buttery?
Buttery is consistent. Yeah, we really try and spread that.
Awesome.
I am personally a huge fan of the custom mapping thing. Myself, like most security guys, think that I tend to be always right and I know better. So if I can go in and do that mapping myself, we're just, yeah, buttery is the word. I love it. So huge fan.
Well, continuing on that smooth and dairy themed vein, let's talk about how we make it easy and smooth for you to pass off work to the remediators. You know, if you're not using PlexTrac to track remediation, you are using something like Jira or ServiceNow, it's silly easy to integrate. It's simply click on for any given finding that you would like to create a ticket for. You click on the status tracker, and assuming that you've got either Jira, I don't have ServiceNow configured in this environment, but it's the exact same little button. It's green too, it just says ServiceNow. But I can simply create a Jira ticket from any finding. And then based upon the access from the API token that's presented, I have my list of associated projects, and then I can choose, my associated issue types, and then simply create a Jira ticket. And you'll notice that when I did that, I actually got an indication of what the actual ticket number that exists on that Jira project. And that's really cool because not only do I have that as a reference, but I can click on that and I can be taken directly to, which I, of course, am not logged into my Atlassian server. But assuming that I've logged in, I'm now taken directly to the actual Jira ticket as well. So very, very smooth. And what's also interesting about that is that, as Landon mentioned, bi-directional. So if I close this out, this is now done. This will sync back to PlexTrac. Now that is on a 30-minute poll, so you won't see that instantaneously, but that will come back to PlexTrac for you. Also, any comments that are included in here are going to sync directly back to you as well. Now, once again, that happens on that same 30-minute polling cycle. But what you will see is that if you do go to the status tracker, much like if you were to actually just add some comments in here manually inside of PlexTrac, you get that running tally. This is where you're going to find those sync back comments that come from that Jira ticket. So, I would love for everyone on the planet to use nothing but PlexTrac, but hey, we get it. People have got Jira. We're a Jira shop. We use Jira ourselves. And having this level of integration just makes it so much easier for people, I think, who do work in those larger organizations and need this level of flexibility. So the last thing I want to, sorry, go ahead, Jordan.
Oh, no, nothing. I'll just foot stomp that again as a selling point for, security teams. Sometimes they don't always have the largest budget. Sometimes they really have to fight for their tools. When you're talking about force multipliers like PlexTrac, again, that integration to the larger organization is much easier to sell. So always bring that up if you're trying to get PlexTrac purchased.
Awesome. I'm going to send you over to the sales team, JT.
Yeah, right.
So the last thing I want to leave us with today is a discussion of what we can do in runbooks. Now, runbooks is one of our modules that's designed, as Landon mentioned, around purple teaming or implementing a very solid methodology. We have, we ship this thing with a couple of sample runbooks and things like that. I've stood up a fresh environment. I got a clean slate here. And that's okay, because what I'm here to show you is not the process of you creating a runbook, but what you can do by importation of those existing adversary emulation plans. And today, once again, we support either the SIPE community threat plans or the MITRE adversary emulation plans. We did a full webinar about maybe 6 months to a year ago, where we went really in depth into these. If you just Google, MITRE Ingenuity adversary emulation plans, GitHub, you can get taken to their site. But it's a great resource where they do in fact have people who are part of the community create test plans that are based upon observed adversary tactics, techniques, and procedures, right? So I'm going to choose the MITRE adversary emulation plan. I've downloaded the MITRE, I think it's the Fin 6 that I've got available of their adversary emulation plan. It is in fact Fin 6. And I will upload that. And what we're doing here is, this is not PlexTrac curated content. This is coming from MITRE. So once again, Jordan talking about, hey, people you can trust, right? And now I've got this ready to go to test the actual procedures that they're seeing out of the Fin 6 ransomware organization. So if I were to now go to create engagement from this runbook, I'll call this my Fin 6 engagement. I'm real creative. Identify a client that I want to do this for and begin this engagement. Now I can, within seconds, as you can see, I've now got the actual test procedures for this adversary emulation plan. I can jump straight into execution. I've got the exact command line inputs to feed into my tool. I've got the, where do I go to get the actual payload, right? This could be a GitHub site, things like that. But everything I need right out of the box, compliments of the community are available to me. And we're not going to, there's plenty of PlexTrac training on runbooks out there. We're not going to make this into a runbook type of webinar, but just yet again, one of those great integrations that we've got with a partner organization that's kicking out some really great content that can help you get up and running. Right now, if you're an enterprise, obviously the big bad threat for everybody is always going to be ransomware for right now. Yeah, the APTs are out there, they want your data too, but you're much more likely to get targeted by something like this. This allows you to go grab it either from MITRE Ingenuity or from Scythe, and get an opportunity to test yourself. How are my defenses working against things that are actually being seen in the wild? And JT, you obviously had an opportunity to see up close and personal, how the Intel collaboration works there. And it's I don't know if you got any stories or feedback, but once again, if you can pull it down from someplace like MITRE Ingenuity, it's probably fairly solid test plan.
Yeah, spot on. I mean, really, even in the larger governmental organizations and their Intel, the overall large Intel community, right? There's like the 17 agencies, but you break all that down and break it apart, and guess what? At the end of the day, maybe they've got a little bit more information, but they're still doing their associations back to the MITRE attack matrix, NIST CSF controls. I mean, it all comes back to the lowest point on the map, right? So it's great that those tools are available, and we're just doing more and more integration with those kinds of organizations.
So we had a great question from the audience about, will those execution steps be editable? We actually are fairly far along in a major overhaul of runbooks. And I am going to let Landon answer this because I know what I know, but I'm going to let the expert talk about it.
Yeah, I was actually just typing it back. I was going to say, we've heard that feedback loud and clear, and yes, we'll be improving that experience. And so I will press send. I'll just say that. Thank you, Brian, for the question.
Yeah, that's definitely something that you're going to be excited to see in the very near future. We've gotten a lot of feedback for those of you who are runbooks users on just having the ability to better record the deviations that occur when you're executing a particular procedure, and we're incorporating that feedback into this redesign. So I can't wait for that, Dallin. So it's probably a good time. I'm going to try to turn my camera back on just so I can wave to the crowd, but I'm gonna turn it back over to you, Dallin, at this point, unless we've got, do we have any other unanswered questions out there?
One more that I think Jordan's answering, which is, where does PlexTrac fetch all the steps from APT groups?
And if we're gonna address it live, that's great. So just like the three organizations we called out that we integrate with, it's their product, it's their output. You don't need anything special from PlexTrac to be able to ingest that. we've done all the legwork for you. If you're working with those organizations, you just bring that data in to PlexTrac. It's very straightforward. So we don't curate it. We don't make the decisions for you as to what to bring in. That's all between you, the tools you're using, and the organizations that you're working with. So I hope that's a solid answer there.
Cool. Well, sweet. Yeah, thanks for passing it back over to me, Shawn. And I'll get us wrapped up here and get everyone back on with the rest of their Wednesday. So yeah, a couple quick resources to plug. You know, webinars like this one that we're doing right now, as well as lots of helpful tips and tricks. We've got a great Cup of Joe series are all available on our YouTube channel. So go check that out. And if you want to watch this webinar or send it to any coworkers or friends, it will be up on that YouTube channel by the end of this week. Last couple things, just, you know, if you want to keep up with PlexTrac, all the awesome things we're doing, we're on Twitter, YouTube, LinkedIn, Instagram. You can see the handles there at PlexTrac. And yeah, if you're interested in seeing more, if you aren't already a customer, you can book a demo over at plextrac.com/book-a-demo. So yeah, that's it from the marketing side. I want to thank you three, Shawn, Landon, and Jordan. It was a great session, and Jordan, you killed it, man, for your first webinar. So yeah, thanks to all three of you guys for joining us today, and I'll let you guys kind of sign us off here.
Hey, catch us at RSA. Next month, I'll be there personally. Catch us at Gartner. Catch us at Summer Camp. All three events will be Black Hat, DEF CON, and we are gold sponsors for the finally back on B-Sides Vegas. And I will be at the pool party. So look forward to seeing you there.
Good deal.
All right.
Sweet.
Thank you guys for joining us so much today. We appreciate your time.
Absolutely. Yeah, it was great seeing everybody. Some of the familiar names in there. Brian, say hi to Dolly for me. So appreciate you, man.
Cool. Yeah. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.
Take care.
Take care.